there we go. I'm recording. This is a reading for Beasto that we're doing to accommodate the intermittent stream quality. I'll be uploading these, and we're streaming this live right now. Look at this mountain with the, and you're going to walk out to those mountains. Red. Okay, so Bisto's question is pretty much about, it's kind of like, how do you help somebody get back on track when they're basically kind of coming from an all-impulsive place. And all-impulsive kind of screams darkness, doesn't it? That's kind of like what we're talking about tonight quite a bit. It seems like that's the message that's coming out in the cards. It's about kind of like bringing the, well, there's a whole lot of other stuff to talk about, but let's just say it's like bringing the darkness into the light, because the darkness is where our reactions come from. And there's something about reactivity and like the way that somebody's behaving is all just a reaction. And the consciousness, like there's maybe a misconception that being conscious of something is about accounting for all the things, when really it's not. It's about having a little bit of hope at a certain point. Lover's card here. I can tell it's somebody you care about very much. That's pretty much the first thing that I see. That you care about this person on the deepest possible level is basically what this is expressing to me, the High Priestess and the Lover's card. There's like a desire to, what's that word that sometimes people say? To merge with this person. It's a scary word because sometimes that's a sign that there's something kind of like unchecked going on inside. But on another kind of level. Isn't it funny? Let me just, I'm just going to go with the things that are crossing my mind while I look at these cards. So it's going to be more of a stream of consciousness thing. Isn't it funny how on one hand we say something like, you know, there's this like desire to merge with someone and to really attach to somebody, and that's like we see that as like almost like a toxic trait or something, that somebody would want to be, you know, so close, or so like where oneness between, where two become one, you know, like that whole like you complete me, all that stuff. And it's like, and we see that as like a toxic thing. But then if we go into like the real consciousness work and we get like really kind of like getting in there, deep down in it, and also like really, really bright, kind of like seeing ourselves as like the most divine human beings and all that stuff. All of a sudden we start talking about oneness, and we start talking about how it's about non-duality and getting to this place where we're kind of integrating ourselves with the all of everything. And then all of a sudden this word merging seems a little bit different. I would say that one of the ways to differentiate, if you're having this impulse or this kind of desire, this drive to kind of merge with somebody, or to really get closer and closer with someone in order to be a supportive partner, or to help somebody, to help your person get out of where they are. And if your mentality is that you can approach them and you can get closer to them, and getting closer to them is what would help them, because they can kind of like, I don't know, it's kind of like how I'm tethering the internet off of my phone right now. You know, you'd be able to kind of like tether with your Wi-Fi. You're going to do a little hotspot and help them out and increase their signal. I would say the differentiating factor there is, are you just approaching them in that way, or are you approaching everyone in that way? Is it everyone and everything, or is it just that one person? The moon. I feel like that's where we're going to find some darkness. We're going to find something in the dark there about the idea of rescuing, or the idea of being a support by drawing nearer. The darkness has this belief that the beliefs are a little bit backwards in the dark. And it's not so much that we've consciously chosen to develop those beliefs. It's more that we are aware. It's in the moment when we decide to push something away, or there's a decision to not deal with something, and it does go into the dark. Our darkness isn't dumb. It is still us. There's just this, in order to make sense of doing that, we would have to assign a certain set of rules to it. And the set of rules would have to be different. It would have to seem opposite almost. Like if I don't want to have this thing, eating at me all day, which is like an assumption in and of itself, then I'm going to have to make sure that it's playing by different rules. And then that way I play by opposite rules, and then I won't encounter this thing. So what we're talking about in your reading, Beasto, is this desire to draw nearer to someone in order to support them. The darkness is operating under the assumption that support and drawing closer to someone are one and the same. That support is when you pick up the slack. But that doesn't exactly make too much sense. If we're to look at that in the light, if we're just going to shine some light on that, it doesn't exactly make too much sense. Because it's kind of, now, for it just to be one person and not the rest of everything is really it. The High Priestess here is kind of like this deeper awareness of the oneness of all the things put together. And it's really, really lovely to have that awareness. But when we have that kind of desire to draw near to a particular person and not all the other things, then it kind of gets into a strange contradiction here. It's going to be hard to bring this one to light, very difficult, because it involves dropping a very this one's connected deep. This one's connected to something of a deeper belief in love, like how love works. Anyway, I won't get too far into assuming what's going on for you, but I feel like the cards, see, look at this, Seven of Pentacles, and it's just like Sentinel's reading. And so if, again, we're being asked to go back to Sentinel's reading to take a look at this Seven of Pentacles. And I saw this as like at first, like if I'm looking at it kind of from a distance, I see like a baker with a piping gun, and they're like, decorating the cake and articulating every last detail and being very meticulous. So maybe go back to Sentinel's reading once you see this again tomorrow to kind of refresh what this Seven of Pentacles means in that reading. And it's the same thing in this. And so that's going to help us to see what I mean here by the Lover's card. The Lover's card being kind of this desire to unite or merge. And it's kind of when it's like lovers in the dark. Lovers in the dark. What do lovers in the dark do? What do lovers do in the dark? That's a question, I guess. Depends, right? Depends on the day. Depends how everybody's feeling that day. In this particular situation, it's kind of this idea of merging, like that we have when we have unquestioned beliefs about love. Sometimes there's a belief that drawing nearer to someone, it equals being supportive of that person, and it's kind of like it's based on the idea that you could possibly account for every single thing that this person needs or every single thing that you need in that moment. It's very finite in the sense of like there hasn't been really much room afforded to the idea that you don't know what they need. There hasn't been much room afforded to you don't know what needs of yours you'd be neglecting by drawing nearer to someone to support them. So there's this kind of like assumption that you've accounted for every single last detail. Now, in Sentinel's reading, it went even further as to say, is that how things play out in the light? Do we just sit there experiencing things and accounting for all the details of what's going on in this moment? Like at a certain point of saying, well, this moment is wonderful, because of this place we're in, and it's so great, and then like there's the sun shining, and that's also really great. And you know what makes the sun shine? The sun shines through the atmosphere, and the ozone protects us from getting too much UV rays. And what's really wonderful about sitting in the sun is that, and then you get into like the science of how the sun shines down on you, and at a certain point you're thinking about all these things and trying to account for all the details of what makes this moment so great, or in your case, what makes this moment so supportive. And Beasto had an ad break. So, you'll have to see the rest. You'll have to see this tomorrow, this reading. Hopefully it makes sense. In the darkness, accounting for every single last detail is, when it's in the light, we can kind of see that doing this kind of thing at a certain point, it takes away from experiencing what we're actually intending to experience. So in the case of supporting a loved one, and the assumption that drawing nearer to that person equals support, that's based on the assumption that you have the ability to account for every single last detail. And the real contradiction is that if we were to shed some light on that, we would recognize that if we were to play this out, there's just, not only would we not ever be able to account for every single last detail, but accounting for every single last detail would take away from our ability to experience the very thing that we're aiming to achieve. So no, drawing nearer to someone doesn't necessarily equal support. And you don't necessarily know what this person needs, even though you might have a great idea and you might be able to still be supportive. This is just more, we've got to question this assumption that drawing nearer just equals support, that there's something that you have the ability to give this person something that can help them through where they are. Ace of Pentacles. So there's the darkness and the light, and so there's something that's shedding light on your situation. What's shedding light could very well be this reading right now, but there could also be something else that's going on here. There's a High Priestess, and I'm seeing, that's why I see it might be this reading, or it might be a series of kind of psychic events where like you're just being made aware of things by concepts and words that are being spoken to you, symbols and things that are coming out. And this is the Hanged Man here that I get right in between there. I'm kind of curious about this zone here, what offers you the opportunity. If we're going to pick what system to go by, we've got to go by our consciousness. We've got to go by what we are consciously aware of. The systems that we develop in the dark, these systems, these assumptions that we can basically, merge with someone and help them live their life. All I really have to offer is stability and structure, but these are things she lacks immensely right now. Right. Well, see, the Hanged Man here, there's something about the light, Beasto, and I really appreciate, like, first of all, how generous it sounds like you're willing to be with somebody who seems to be in a rough spot. And it seems like, isn't that wonderful? I want to say that. At the same time, I almost feel like I know what, like I can sense or something in here. This is somebody who doesn't want your help. And it might not make sense. Maybe if you were to give them help, it would be like the best thing for them. And you might be totally right about that. First of all, there's no way to account for all that and to ever know. But because we can't live out both versions of the story where you help them and you don't help them, and just to take a inventory of what course ends up better off. So That's the first contradiction. We've got to kind of leave ourselves with our conscious logic on this one. Take yourself to a conscious place when you're thinking about supporting someone. If you think that you might know what's best for somebody, first of all, acknowledge that there's no way to test that out. There's zero way to live out both scenarios at the same time and to check in after a certain period of time and to run some kind of longitudinal study that analyzes both courses over the exact same points. And there's just no way. There's no way to actually be aware that this has played out. And there is a key for you. And it's almost like that is a marker right there of something that's trying to stay in the dark, is something that will develop a system of logic that could never be brought to light. Darkness wants to sustain itself. Darkness has only one prerogative, and that's just to keep itself dark and to not be looked at, to not be seen. And the very notion that we could possibly be supportive of another person, even, in itself is like a fallacy. So, not saying that you won't support this person and that down the road they won't, later thank you for it or acknowledge that you've been very supportive. What I'm saying is that when we're being supportive of somebody, you have a much stronger chance of being supportive if you're acknowledging that there's no way of you knowing if this is the right thing to do or not. It's like come back down to earth. Come back down to earth, because it's funny, the darkness, it's kind of like floating around in this uncertain area but it's like certainty. But certainty in the darkness comes off as uncertainty in the light. And so you might be this person would hear your desire to be supportive or to support them. What they would hear is a bunch of bull. They would hear something like, you are making stuff up. How do you know this is what's going to help? Who are you to say this is what's going to happen? So there's something about your best chance of being supportive of this person is to tie yourself with your conscious logic of what you actually know and what you actually experience. What you actually know is that you have these particular things, they seem to lack those particular things. But do you actually know that you offering those particular things to this person is what's going to help them? That's kind of the idea there. Do you actually know that? Knight of Pentacles. Okay. Last part of your reading here. I'm just going to do this. I'm not even going to read this side. Reading the darkness is kind of a bit of a, there'll be a lot of traps and things in there. And I'm happy to do it, but I just feel like maybe this is more the point of the reading, and it might have a better chance of answering your question if I focus on the light here. There's this consistency. Beasto, first of all, whatever you do consistently is going to be supportive. That's basically it. That's the first message for you, is just whatever you do consistently is going to be the thing that is going to be the most effective. Not short bursts of things, but like long duration kind of stuff. Now, consistency. I'm going to take that a little bit further. In the dark and the light, we're talking about the darkness has this ability to kind of make a logic of something, to say to fool you into believing that you have the ability to account for every single last detail when you're trying to help somebody out. And the truth is that you can't. And to admit that, kind of, while it makes you seem a little bit less certain of whether or not you can help, it also seems a lot more realistic. It also might be a lot more inviting, because it's kind of like not based on this kind of grandiosity that you have the answer when you actually don't. Now, the consistency here is the key, because if you're going to be helping somebody, merging with somebody, if you're going to be letting someone tether onto your life, and so that you have resources and you're going to let them spend your resources so to help them out of a tough spot, let's be consistent with that logic. If you really want to keep that one going, let's be consistent about it. Because in the light, like we were saying earlier in your reading, this merging is, we're talking about oneness with all things. Do you know what this means? Merging isn't something that happens between you and just one other person. This happens between you and everything. I'm talking about between you and all the people around you, between you and your environment, between you and the air that exists, between your two hands. When you go like this, there's a space of air here in between. There's space between there. And like, I can put my hands together like this, and I can feel like I've almost merged my hands together, but the only way I can get the sensation of merging my hands together is if I imagine that I am also the space between my hands. If you're really gonna get into being someone who can be close enough with somebody so as to support them in such a way where they can become a part of you, if you're going to bring that into the light, you've got to be consistent with your logic. That involves you becoming one with all things, not just this person. So there's a bit of a job there. Are you ready to be supportive? If you want to hold that, carry that forward into conscious awareness in a way where this person is going to sense that you are being genuine and truthful, that you have a genuine desire to allow them to be a part of your life in that way. Unless your philosophy involves all things, they won't ever fully believe you because you'll be lying. That's like kind of I'm saying a lot of stuff like as final statements, and I'm just kind of like, this is more a mental exercise. It's about the concept of being supportive of somebody. And so take whatever you can out of this reading. I'm not going to say that you are doing any of these things, Beasto, but it's more like if you have thought about supporting somebody in this way, if you have thought about letting somebody be that much a part of your life where they could take your resources, they could take your energy, that they could tether onto you and you could pull them out of the mud that they're in. You know, it's almost like you're the person with a truck and everybody wants to borrow you to help them move stuff. Okay, well, that's what it is to be the person with the truck, I guess. That if you start doing that with one person, and you want it to kind of pass as genuine, it's going to have to be with all things. And are you ready for that? And maybe your answer is yes. I would just kind of maybe assume, and this is maybe just me being a bit of a cynic, I would assume that if you've achieved enlightened awareness of the oneness of all things, there would be a sense of ease and peace with this person, no matter where they're at. And so it's kind of revealed in the nature of your question that you're not in that place in your consciousness. And that's not a criticism. It's just kind of more, listen to the things we tell ourselves sometimes when we're operating out of the darkness. The assumptions that we make about what things are supposed to be between two people who care about each other. think I'm ready for that. I've long felt my purpose in life is to offer aid. That is wonderful, Beasto. That is wonderful. And that truly is, awakening your consciousness into kind of a more global consciousness, or, we say global as if it's like the political globe, but, a more universal consciousness. At a certain point, I mean, for me anyway, there's something about service. Like, at a certain point, it's not got to be about manifesting my desires anymore. Or my desires have to be connected with all things, in order to experience those kind of states of connectedness with everything as one, and to be one with everything. There's this kind of dropping our individual desires going on at the same time. And I can understand that, being of service to somebody, to help somebody out. And you can only focus your energy in so many places. And so to be of service is to be consistent, to do the best you can all the time, to keep on going. It looks like it could be like a very helpful thing. It could be also difficult in this kind of state of, there's this in-between area, this spot in between where we're kind of, we say, straddling the edge between light and dark, allowing ourselves to have these kind of like overinflated, grandiose kind of ideas about what love should be. And also being kind of more aware that, some of the stuff that we hold up is a bit unrealistic. And we're kind of straddling at the same time, because it's kind of like in this moment where we experience some pretty wonderful things. This is like where the rainbow is right here, like the first reading we got. This kind of like the ideal spot, I guess according to Jung or whoever, a lot of different people have worked with this concept, but like, this is where the magic happens. This is kind of where most of us reside most of the time. And it's kind of like the place where we're drawing the most darkness toward the light is when we're sitting at the gates between the darkness and the light. We can be too enlightened sometimes. Like there's, what would it be like if somebody somebody is walking out into the street, is the classic example. The bus is coming. They're about to be hit by a bus. Sometimes we need to be operating out of the darkness to grab their arm and to pull them back onto the sidewalk. If we were to, in that moment, say, I'm going to connect with the oneness of all things, bus hits the person, right? We got to be kind of a little bit more, sometimes it is about being an unaware human being, and sometimes that's a wonderful thing. Sometimes we end up doing some things unconsciously that lead to our desired outcomes. Oh, Beasto, there's so much ad breaks. I didn't realize that's how many ad breaks there are. Okay, I'm going to end your reading there. Hopefully that helps with your... we can maybe do another reading about this sometime when we're not doing a reading about light. We're not doing a night about light and dark and intermittent internet availability. I'll end it here for YouTube, and if you're on YouTube, you're watching this after the fact. Take care. Thanks so much for watching.